أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. We read in al-Ziyara al-Jami'a al-Kabira, one of the important ziyarats that we do, and it is good to say salams to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam during the eve of Friday, the night of Friday. And we read this line, وَالتَّامِينَ فِي مَحَبَّةِ اللَّهِ, that the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam were perfect and complete when it comes to the love of God. وَالْمُخْلَصِينَ فِي تَوْحِيدِ اللَّهِ, and that they were sincere in professing Tawheed, in God's oneness. So when we come to approach Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and learn about them, inshallah tonight we're going to be mentioning about the life of al-Baneen, inshallah at the end, the mother of Hazrat Abbas. You see that the Ahlul Bayt and those that are involved with Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they had these two qualities. One, they're complete in love. Two, they were sincere in Tawheed. A person reaches the highest station that they can when they reach taqarrub, when they reach closeness and proximity to God. And what this proximity involves is that they love God, that their hearts are connected to God. They love God and God loves them. So this is the highest station that someone can have, that in the Day of Judgment, that the amount of love that Allah has for us, Allah loves everyone, but there will be those that He will love khasatan, and will be very specific, and His love will be very intense for them. And we will see on that day, there are specific people, as we have, for example, Hazrat Abbas, the son of al-Baneen, that everybody that is martyred will have ghibta and will wish they had the status of the martyrs of Karbala. Even they wish they had the status of Hazrat Abbas, because there are different ranks. So Allah has given us different ranks, and Hazrat Abbas is the highest of the martyrs of Karbala. And we see that al-Baneen alayhi salam is also one of the highest in those that have truly loved Allah and has prioritized the love of Imam Hussein over the love of her own children, and loves Imam Hussein, the Imam of her age, more than the love of her own children. So this is the highest station that someone can get. And I was always wondering how I could speak to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. As you know, these lines from this ziyarah, it's a ziyarah attributed to Imam Hadi alayhi salam. And I sincerely recommend you, brothers and sisters, to spend some time on this ziyarah, this encyclopedia of Imamat, this encyclopedia of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And you see that such beautiful lines and lessons that the Ahlul Bayt are what ta'mina fi mahabbatillah. When you want to talk to the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and you go to the shrine of one of the Imams, for example, you're always wondering, how can I talk to them? What can I say? This is such an imperfect person, such an infallible person. I'm just happy just to be here. Now, how can I address them? How can I talk to them? That is, this adab and the mannerisms of speaking is from such ziyarats, such texts that we recite to them. So you go to Ahlul Bayt and tell them, وَتَعْمِينَ فِي مَحَبَّةِ اللَّهِ, that you are perfect in the love of Allah. And therefore, when you're expressing this, that you are perfect in the love of Allah, you also, at the same time, it resonates in your heart and in your mind that I also want to be complete. I also want to be perfect when I love God. And we're going to talk about how can we be complete and perfect when it comes to the love of God. Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, when we talk about their perfection, we see that yes, it is the best thing for Allah to love someone. But higher than we can even fathom is the position of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Their position is in such a way that when you see, for example, in the different traditions, that not only does Allah intensely love them, but also that they become the criteria, or they become the criterion for the love of God, as we have for example, Lady Fatima, that Allah becomes upset, angry with the anger of Lady Fatima, and therefore loves those that Lady Fatima loves. So Ahlul Bayt reach such a high proximity and closeness to God that their will becomes the will of God, and they begin to love Allah, and they become the standard for however we want to see, whoever wants to be realized, do they truly love Allah or not? We look at if they love Ahlul Bayt. So they become the criteria. So when we look at some of the hadith, we understand that we should have intense love for God. It is not something that we could say that love does not exist because love is only from humans to humans. No, this is absolutely false. That love comes from this attraction that we have for completion, because Allah is completion itself, is perfection itself. We love Him, and we love things that are more perfect. So there's no being that is more perfect than God. So therefore, our love for God is true. Our love for God exists. We see that Imam Hussein alayhi salam beautifully in dua, he teaches us this, that how much we should love God. أنت الذي أزلت الأغيار عن قلوب أحبائك حتى لم يحبوا سواك. So we're looking at such level from Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that it is you who remove the strangers from the hearts of your lovers, so that they never love other than you, that they remove the love of everything else besides Allah from their hearts. I'm saying this to myself, inshallah, doing dua that I could reach such a position, inshallah. So that's the first thing when we look at shiddatu hubb al-mu'min lillah, that the mu'min loves Allah, that there's nothing else in his heart. It is purely for God, reserved for God. And then it mentions, Mada, and later on the dua, wajada man faqadak. What does the one who loses you find besides you? If you have lost everything in this world, you don't have anything, but you have the love of God, it is worth it because you have everything. And then it says in the dua, Mada wajada man faqadak. But what has somebody gained if he has lost you? But if he has everything in this world, the riches of the world, the food of this world, the pleasures of this world, the fame of this world, but doesn't have God, has he found anything? So that absolute blessing and hadiyah, we can say, from God, is that He has given us a chance to recognize Him, that in such a night, the night of Friday, that we can talk to Him, the night of forgiveness, that we can, as a community, come together and talk and speak and listen about the Quran and verses of Ahlul Bayt and recite Dua Kumayl, and to speak Allah, because these tawfiqs and these provisions have not been given to everyone. So we are very grateful for it. And we have to recognize that in these hadith, it's saying the love of God and finding God is priceless and is worth the entire world. If they give the entire world and everything it has, and the entire planets, and the love of God on the other side, we choose the love of God, inshallah. Then we see something else. So a question that arises is that you just mentioned you removed everything else from our hearts. Does it mean that we should only love God and not love the creation? Does this mean that that we should love God more than our parents, more than our children, more than our spouses, our wealth? Well, let's look at this hadith and answer this question. Al-Imam Sadiq alayhi salam mentions, لم يمحض رجل الإيمان بالله حتى يكون الله أحب إليه من نفسه وأبيه وأمه وولده وأهله وماله ومن الناس كلهم. A person's faith in Allah will not be pure. You're looking at mahd, looking at pure iman. Pure iman is, we have in the traditions too, that those that will have raj'ah and will come after death, they'll be raised again from the graves. As you also have verses, is interesting in the Old Testament too, that talk about this, that you have raja and the return happen for those that have iman al-mahd, pure iman, and those that also will be raised in for raja later after Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Faraj, during that time of his reappearance, is also al-kufr al-mahd, or those that have shirk al-mahd, complete polytheism or complete disbelief. They will also come. So if somebody wants to be like this and have this station, have iman al-mahd, it says until the love of God becomes pure in them more than himself, his father, his mother, his child, his children, his wife, his wealth, and all people. So does this mean that we should not love our kids? Does this mean that we should not love our parents? No, obviously not. The Imams had the most respect for their parents. The Imams had the most love for their children. The Imams had the most love for all of creation. If you see the prophets and their sayings are all of this, irham, turham, have mercy and have mercy upon. So we can understand it this way. You should have shidda, hub for Allah. You should have complete love and intense love for God. But if things are going to contradict it, sometimes your wealth comes in the way, and your love of wealth comes in the way. If it comes in the way, you choose Allah. Sometimes a child or children, or we're thinking so much about their future, and in their material future, we could say, not their spiritual future, their material future, and it causes us to maybe do a haram business transaction because I want more money for my family. So when it comes to these tests, or for our parents the same way, for others the same way, when it comes to contradictions, inshallah, we live in a life that our wife, our children, our wealth, all are in line for Allah. It is all spent for Allah, and we raise children for Allah, we love parents for Allah, and it's in the same tool, it's in the same line. But this comes as when it contradicts, and you have to choose between one of those. So we should at the same time love God, but this doesn't mean that you should love your children less, or you love your parents less. No, you complete yourself with the love of creation. So what brings, the ultimate question is this, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, you are tamina fi mahabbatillah, you are complete. You go to the shrine of the Imams, inshallah, this tawfiq has been given to us. I'm in the holy city of Qom, inshallah, I will be saying your salams, inshallah, to the shrine of Lady Fatima Ma'asuma, inshallah. So we have tawfiq of doing ziyarat of all the Imams. So what brings, when you go to an infallible person and you're going to somebody that is at the pinnacle, at the height of spirituality and love, what do you ask from them? You say, allow me to become like you. Allow me to have some of that love, taste some of that love of God that you have. Oh, Ali ibn Musa Rida, I became more familiar with the ziyarat when I would visit Ali ibn Musa Rida Mashhad. And I was always wondering what words to use. And these are the most perfect words. You look here at how now that the Imams that I'm doing ziyarat of, when I do ziyarat of Imam Hussein, it's on the eve of Friday, the night of Friday, how can I also improve my love of God? How can I perfect my love? I'm going to give a few pieces of advice, inshallah, from Quran and Hadith. One, we have this very beautiful verse. You can write this down if you want, in 331, Al Imran 31. A lot of people think that love is something that you just say, I love you, and you're done, and that's it, without being tested, without actually, striving for it, without working for it. But here it says very beautifully in the Quran, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ. If you should love Allah, tell them, O Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tell them, Prophet Muhammad, that if you truly love Allah, and you're saying, I'm a friend of God, and I truly love Allah, فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Tell them to follow me. يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah will love you. So we see a direct relation between love of God and following the instructions of the Prophet, following the instructions of his successors. So a person cannot say that I truly love Allah when their wajibat and staying away from haramat is not complete. So we see that is actually our first step that we need to do, is to understand that Allah wants to perfect us through taklif. Allah wants to perfect us through staying away from mafsada and corruption. Allah wants to protect us and help us to grow by encouraging us towards salah and what is righteous and what is good. That's all Islam is commands, but commands for you, not commands that Allah wants to be benefited from. He does not benefit or be harmed from any of the takalif that you have. But He wants to do tarbiyah. He wants to improve you. He wants to raise you. He wants to complete you. So therefore, He wants to take you away from this mafsada and this corruption. So we have to understand that these sins that Allah has for us, it is for ourselves. If you look, it's all rizq. Drinking alcohol is rizq. Eating animals that should not be consumed is rizq. All of these are evil things, impure things, and it is good for us. Or doing a halal business transaction is khair, is good, because it's tijaratan and taradin. It's business transaction with radaya, with contentment. So therefore, Islam is telling us to live a balanced life. And if you do not live and don't follow these instructions, we have this nafs, this evil desires that we have that will doom us and will lead us towards the path of destruction. So very beautifully in this verse of the Quran, if you want the love of Allah, brothers and sisters, if you want Allah to love you, look at your wajibat, muharramat, look at your takalif. Allah has given you obligations. We are a slave, we are a servant of God. How are we when it comes to completing all our duties, when it comes to all realms of our life? Our financial responsibilities, our family responsibilities, our spiritual responsibilities, learning them. And another thing is, a lot of times we think that these obligations, sometimes we get overwhelmed, sometimes we're tired. And I know it is difficult living in a society where, in general, the society is not practicing the rules of God. And you seem like you're the only one that is doing it. It might be tiring. But think about it this way. I want us to change our perspective on these things. Think of it this way, that when God loves you, He gives you more of a program. He tells you more. He gives you more rulings. Look at the month of Ramadan. Shahr Ramadan, we are the Yuf al-Rahman. We are the guests of God. And in the month of Ramadan, Allah gives us fasting. He obligates fasting for us. He makes muftarat. He has muftarat. Do not eat, do not drink, do not do these actions for me, because as-sawm wali, because fasting is for me. So He gives you more obligations. But what happens? You see that during the beginning and the night of Qadr, towards the end, that after 20 days of fasting and working on yourself, then you see the nights of Qadr, you see the effect of it. Wow, now I can read Dua Abu Hamza, I can read Dua Joshua al-Kabira, and I can connect to God. Now it's the night of Qadr, and I can truly cry for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Ali alayhi salam. And then when it reaches 8th time, I'm pure and I'm happy, and I feel much better about myself. Why? Because tarbiyah happened to you. You have been improved. Why? Because of more obligations. So you understand that those obligations are for us, for our progress. Look at Hajj. Allah also, in the same time, you want to visit my house, Baytullah, you want to visit the house of God? Well, there's more commands. There's like a list of things that a muhrim cannot do. Someone that has ihram and puts away all the clothes that they had before, and in unison with his brothers and sisters in Islam, they do tawaf. They do sa'i, and they stone shaitan. Altogether, there's more takalif, and if you do this, you have to sacrifice an animal. This is haram. He gives you more obligations. Why? Because Allah likes it to treat His guests with progress. We have a limited time, and Allah wants you to grow them as much as you can and build your hereafter, because He sees, we might not see this clearly, but He knows that this world is going to pass by like a blink of an eye. But we're in building. Some of us right now, we might not have a good home for ourselves in the hereafter. Na'udhu maybe someone like me, my home could be in the hellfire. Or in those that are in heaven, as our teacher used to say, he said, heaven also has stables, places where they put the horses. So he says, at least, even if you go to heaven, there's stables, remember. You want to go to good levels of heaven. You don't want to be with the horses. You don't want to be in the stables of heaven. You want to go to high levels of heaven. And this is all done by getting true love of Allah And this is done, how do you get true love of Allah? By following these obligations that are good for us. That's one way, obligations and takalif. The other way we can see and we understand, and we'll finish inshallah with this, the other way we can encourage each other to have love of God, and I encourage myself, is this hadith in Mi'raj. As you know, Mi'raj is a very special time for the Holy Prophet of Islam. You know, he was closer, kana qawba qawsayn. When you take a bow and you pull it, that's a qawb. That's, you know, that's one, you could say it's a meter or about 3 feet or 2 feet. It's an expression. But kana qawba qawsayn, 2 bows. That's how close the Prophet came with Allah. And it's, of course, it's metaphorical, but that's how close that the Prophet of Islam was in Mi'raj. What happened in these conversations of Mi'raj? There we have, you know, Hadith al-Mi'raj, a very beautiful hadith, in these deep conversations that are very private, and some of it is revealed for us. Ya Muhammad, Allah speaks to the Holy Prophet. Wajabat mahabbati lil mutahabbina fi. My love is due to those who love each other for my sake. So now we're going besides those obligations that we have, and we were just thinking about us and God. Now we're thinking about our relationship with other people. Also, if I love people in the way of God, and I love my brothers in Islam, and the sisters love their sisters in Islam, in the same way we build a strong community because of Allah. In the center, the core of our love is Allah, then it's wajibat, it says. So Allah makes things wajib for us. In this hadith, he has things that are wajib for himself. Wajibat mahabbati lil mutahabbina fi. So those that love each other for Allah, they gather together, they recite dua, they are friends together because they're brothers in faith, because they both are under the umbrella of walaya of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And if we're not brothers in Islam, we're brothers in creation, as Imam Ali says. So loving people, loving for the way of God. وَوَجَبَتْ مَحَبَّتِي لِلْمُتَعَافِينَ فِي. In those who, we could say, connect or kind to each other. وَوَجَبَتْ مَحَبَّتِي لِلْمُتَوَاصِلِينَ فِي. So those that love each other for my sake, those that are kind to each other because of me, those that al-mutawasilina, sometimes we have some that have severed ties, and there needs to be wasl, and because of God, it's a family member, it's a friend, it's a brother, and we don't want to approach them, it's hard, and sometimes because of God, you see that, you know, Allah wants us, you know, not to have animosity anymore, and we squash that whatever we had between us, and or we try to at least. This Allah makes it wajib that His love is due to that person. His love becomes wajib. This is what we can do, inshallah, that will bring hubbullah, love of Allah. Then it continues, وَوَجَبَتْ مَحَبَّتِي لِلْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ عَلَيْهِ. And wajibat is wajib, my love for those that have tawakkul, those that truly rely on me. Those, first of all, we have to truly believe that Allah is worthy. Of course He is, but we have to truly believe that He is worthy of giving this wakalat in representation and trusting our affairs to God, giving it to Him. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, financially, health-wise. I just know that Allah is the best of protectors. That's all I know. So that's what a person that truly relies on God, not relies on what's in their wallet, what's in their pocket, truly relies on God, Allah will love them. My love is due, is wajib upon them. And then we have وَلَيْسَ لَمَحَبَّتِي أَلَمْ وَلَا غَايَةٍ وَلَا نَهَايَةٍ. There's no, say, sign. There's no, we can say, end to it. There's no level that you can say, I've reached this level and there's nothing else left. For us, we have to keep striving to get this love, inshallah. So this was about the love of God and what can increase us, inshallah, in His love. And inshallah, we are those that we increase, inshallah, our love by why? Acting upon our obligations and staying away from the haram and loving people, caring for people, being kind to them, connecting for the way of Allah, all because of Allah. Now we see in this other part, and then we'll start, inshallah, with the life of Lady al-Baneen. The Ahlul Bayt are al-mukhlasina fi tawheedillah, that they are sincere. You know, there's a mukhlas, which is al-ism al-fa'il, and there's al-mukhlas, which is al-ism al-maf'ul. Al-mukhlas could mean more that a person is striving to have sincerity. Al-mukhlas is someone that has been given and gifted that sincerity. But here's al-mukhlas. Ahlul Bayt are both mukhlas and mukhlas. Wal-mukhlasina fi tawheedillah means that they're sincere. Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are sincere in professing Allah's tawheed. When we talk about the ikhlas, we talked about this in the sermon of Fadak. We spoke that in the sermon of Fadak, Lady Fatima talks about ikhlas and tawheed. And this ikhlas and purity, we can translate it as sincerity, that either it's a tawheed that hasn't been tainted with any type of comparison to man, has not been tainted with any type of polytheism. And that tawheed is a tawheed that has been taught to us by Ahlul Bayt. That is a tawheed that you can study and read the book of Tawheed al-Saduq, who has compiled these beautiful narrations that talk about who Allah is. And we understand that laysa kamithlihi shay, nothing is like it. Then also we have a tawheed and ikhlas that comes in our actions. And that a person is sincere when they're living their life, when it comes to tawheed and the oneness of God, when it comes to religion, they are sincere. And it's very interesting, there are levels, of course, of people that have sincerity. We look at one hadith from Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Very interesting, just so you know, brothers and sisters, that the Ahlul Bayt not only revived the sunnah of the Prophet of Islam, they also revived the hadith of the other prophets. Look at this hadith that when Allah speaks from Ahlul Bayt, when Allah speaks to Prophet Musa alayhi salam, how beautiful. Ya Musa, ma urida bihi wajhi fakathirun qalilu. O Musa, in an intimate conversation, whatever is done for my sake, a little bit of it is a lot. وَمَا أُرِيدَ بِهِ غَيْرِي فَقَلِيلٌ كَثِيرٌ. And whatever is done for besides me and for others, a lot of it is little. So in Allah's eyes, He is looking for sincere action. So we say the Ahlul Bayt are sincere in Tawheed, meaning that when they do actions, it is sincere. If our actions are not sincere, we could do a lot, but doesn't count. As we have, they say some lady was worshiping God, standing in prayer over and over. And they we're looking at her, mashallah, she's doing the salat, mashallah, look at her. And then she got encouraged. And sometimes we want to show off. She says, oh, she's looking at me do salat. You don't even know I'm fasting too. So sometimes we have such intentions to show off, and we do kathir, we do a lot, and it counts as qalil, it counts as not anything. But sometimes we have qalil and it counts as kathir. And that's what we're looking at with sincerity. Sincere actions are those that might not seem a lot, but it's counted and it's worth a lot. We're going to talk about the highest level of sincerity. In Uddatul Da'i, it's a good book. There's a hadith about a group of people that they come on the Day of Judgment, and their actions, their book of actions is completely, there's nothing written in it. It's empty. And this is a disaster for us, that after we live 70 years, 60 years, however long we have, we should have a long list of actions that we did. But some come on the Day of Judgment and it's empty. And Imam Sadiq tells Mufaddal ibn Salih this, and he asks, who are they? Who are these people that they come on the Day of Judgment, that their book of deeds is empty? And the Imam replies, Allah holds them in such regard, in such high regard, that he does not even want the guardian angels to be aware of what is between him and them. They have such high sincerity. They are very special that they engage Allah in a transaction of secrecy, that even the guardian angels do not see their actions. There are people that, inshallah, we can become them, inshallah, that it is a secret transaction, or secret, we could say, relationship that we have with God. Nobody knows in this world. Even in those in the hereafter, they don't know. So this is about sincerity. That when we do ziyarah of Ahlul Bayt, we're looking for sincerity in Tawheed, sincerity in our actions. And I'm going to give a few pieces of advice, inshallah, and talk about Lady Ummul Baneen, inshallah. So what can we do to bring sincerity? In general, sincerity means, that you don't want a reward, you don't want anyone else to know but Allah. So how can we become like this? How can we focus on ourselves that we are sincere? Because there's different levels of sincerity. One is, when we look at the root of sincerity, it is yaqeen. Sababul ikhlas yaqeen. When you get certainty, you have ikhlas. When you truly believe in God, when you truly have yaqeen in the hereafter and the reward of God, and you study the Quran, you study the hadith, you truly understand that God exists and He is ghani, and He has no need, and everything else is faqir and in need. So why would I approach the faqir, those that are in need all the time? Why would I try to impress them? So it comes from yaqeen. The first thing we can do to have sincerity, to reemphasize, truly believe that everything else besides Allah is faqir, is in need, and Allah is sustaining them. Allah has created them. Allah is their Lord. And do you want to please them or please their Lord? So that's the first step. Tell ourselves over and over that the hereafter is real. Allah and Tawheed is a reality for us. And we're here for this specific purpose, and everybody else is a servant of Allah. 2, Imam Ali in Quran al-Hikam says, Thamaratul ilm ikhlasul amal. Increasing our knowledge. And this again incorporates with that yaqeen, studying, and the more you learn about Tawheed, the more you learn about the hereafter and how the world works, this will cause you to have sincerity, inshallah. 3, قلل الأعمال تخلص لك الأعمال. How beautiful are the sayings of Imam Ali alayhi salam. قلل الأعمال. Amal with a alif or hamza here. Reduce your expectations or your dreams. تخلص لك الأعمال. Sometimes we have dreams. It's good to dream to go to heaven, but sometimes we have false dreams. We have material dreams, and we keep dreaming all the time. And they ask you, wake up. Say, I was daydreaming. I was thinking of owning this huge home, thinking of owning this beautiful car, going on this vacation, and you just keep thinking about the world over and over, and it's a dream and a dream and more of a dream. And you forget about what your responsibility is now. You forget about where you're supposed to live in the hereafter. You want comfort in this world, but you forget that comfort is not in this world. Comfort is in the hereafter. So therefore, when we're not in touch with reality and we want to lengthen our stay in this world, as Imam Ali has, that this world is a bridge, pass it, don't build it. We keep dreaming of building this world. It's good to have a plan, a business plan for your family, future, everything. But sometimes we become dreamers and we forget. This causes us to forget about the hereafter, to forget about God. So we have قلل الأعمال تخلص لك الأعمال. Then your actions will be sincere. Then you say, oh, then if I'm going to stop dreaming, if I am in touch actually with reality, then I'm going to have sincere actions. I'm actually going to work for the hereafter, because we understand that the hereafter is not by amal, by dreaming, it's by amal with an ain, it's by action, inshallah. 4, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Aslul ikhlas al-ya'su mimma fi aydin nas. The root of sincerity is despairing of attaining what is in the hands of men. Sometimes our hope is with that paycheck that our boss is going to give us. Our hope is in that customer that we see is entering our shop and he's going to buy something from us. When you have despair upon what the hands of the people, because as we mentioned, they are faqir, they are in need to somebody else, Allah needs to give them rizq. When we separate ourselves from such attachment to the hands of the people, and we're in despair from help of the people, but we only truly have hope in God, that is when we know that we'll have ikhlas, and that is when you know your du'as will be answered. Our problem is a lot of times we have ya'as when it comes to God. We have despair when it comes to God and His mercy, and then in Him protecting us and Him watching us. But we have a hope in the of the hands of people. We should be the opposite. Have despair in the hands of people. Have hope in Allah, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. So with this said, we understand that those that are perfect in the love of Allah are Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We ask the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, and Allah for behalf of the Ahlul Bayt to give us true love. To give us true love of Allah so that we can automatically and very easily worship Him and do actions for Him. And we ask Him to give us sincerity so that our actions can be abundant in His eyes. And of these figures that we talk about, complete love, is Lady al-Baneen, the mother of Hazrat Abbas, the mother that loved Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and Lady Zainab, al-Kulthum, more than her own children. A mother that is said that when she entered the house of Imam Ali, she asked permission from Lady Zainab. That Imam Ali searched for such a lady. He told Aqil to search for such a lady with such qualifications. And they came to Lady al-Baneen, Fatima bint Huzam al-Kulaybiyah, al-Kalabiyya, from this tribe of Kalabiyya. And we understand that they say she did not want the children of Imam Hussein to call her Fatima because they would be reminded of their mother, Lady Fatima. And they called her Baneen. Allah gave her 4 beautiful sons, of them Hazrat Abbas. And all 4 were martyred in Karbala. Many people told Imam Hussein alayhi salam not to go to Karbala, but it is said that she told them, Abbas, go with Hussein and do not come back without Hussein. And when the caravan of Imam Hussein alayhi salam finally comes back to Medina, and she was in Medina, she asked, how was Abbas? Was he loyal? They say loyalty was Abbas, not Abbas was loyal. Loyalty was Abbas. The caravan of Imam Hussein is coming to Medina. As we know, if we were on a trip, it should be nice for us to come back to our hometown. But the caravan of Imam Hussein, Lady Zainab, the children of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein are coming. And they're very sad because now they see the home of Hussein ibn Ali, but nobody else is there. They see the home of the place of Ali Akbar, nobody else is there. The children of Imam Hussein, the home of Hazrat Abbas, nobody is there. They have a person that informs and tells who has been martyred. The name of Bashir. Bashir comes and they ask him questions. Who has become martyr? Al-Baneen comes and she inquires about Hussein ibn Ali, just to make sure. Sometimes you hear things, but just to make sure what happened. And she asks about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Akhbirni an al-Hussein, give me information about Hussein. Some say 3 times she asked. And the level of love that you can love the Imam of your age more than your children is something that we cannot even fathom. She inquires about Hussein ibn Ali first. And she is told that your sons have become martyred. And she doesn't say, and then again, She asks, أخبرني عن الحسين. I'm asking about Hussein ibn Ali, about Abu Abdullah. Can you tell me about my sons? Again, she asks. Finally, she mentions to them, she says that أولادي ومن تحت الخضراء كلهم فداء لأبي عبد الله الحسين. My children and everyone in this world, may they be sacrificed for Hussein ibn Ali. Salams and peace be upon the mother, al-Baneen, of sons, who worried more and inquired more about her Imam of the age more than her 4 beautiful sons. Sallallahu alayki ya al-Baneen, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, Allah will forgive our sins, inshallah, this night. Will cure all the sick, all those that are distressed, remove their ham and gham from them. And inshallah, forgive all the deceased, our family members and friends, and expedite the return of our Mawlaya and our Seyed Imam Zaman, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah.